Gutekunst says he wants to get to the quarterback with 4 rushers. Getting a top-tier defensive tackle in this year's draft would go a long way towards that goal. Let's dive into the prospects that can help this team.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm cash.
Welcome in another episode of Sounds Guta. Thank you everybody for coming back and taking a listen to us. I am one of your 2 co-hosts. My name is Rob Ralph. Next to me is my best friend, as always, Jordan Olson. Just know that we are on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We have episodes every Wednesday and Saturday. We are also on the socials as well. That should be below on the banner. But for today, we are continuing our deep dive series. We're hoping that you guys are enjoying this, and we will also leave a playlist link in the bottom so that you can check out the rest of the ones that we've done so far too as well. But today, we are diving into the defensive tackles. We know that this is a very deep draft class for this. So both Jordan and I are pretty excited to be able to talk a little bit more about this today. But the Packers' current defensive tackle room, if you did not know, Mr. Kenny Clark, who got his 3rd contract, Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, Colby Wooden, and James Esther. But before we get into that, Jordan, we're trying to hit 500 subscribers. And we do know that the draft is coming up. You want to give our followers a little taste of maybe something to come?
Yeah, so Rob and I have been teasing this resource that we've been using as potentially making it available to you, our followers. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to ask for your help in getting to 500 subscribers. If we can get to 500 subscribers before the draft, we will share this resource with the followers, and how that will be helpful to you, especially if you're attending in person. Is that, I've heard, I haven't been to a draft myself, but the NFL draft experience is much different than the experience we get on TV. There's not Todd McShay or, Ian Rappaport breaking down every pick afterwards. We don't have the ticker of best players available to us on a giant screen. So having something that will narrow down the selections and give you a little bit more information and get excited about potential people available when the Packers are on the clock or that time's approaching. That's how this resource might be available to you. So if you all help us out, get us to 500 subs before the draft, we will find a way to share this with our followers. So please help us out if you're able to and interested. But let's dive into this series. So here's a couple things about the big board that we'll share with you before we get into it. But we're not discussing obvious prospects in today's exercise. Like Mason Graham is safely going to be a top 5, top 10 pick. He's not going to be a Green Bay Packer unless we do something crazy and trade way up. I don't think we're going to do that. So we're not talking about Mason Graham anymore after this mention right now. We're still waiting on some players' pro day testing. Rob and I are slightly annoyed with, even after like 3 or 4 of these guys' pro days, we can't find 40 times.
Pretty hard to find.
So it'd be one thing if we couldn't find like a 10-yard split, but man, I can't even find a 40 to kind of round out this person's athletic profile a little bit more for you. Start to figure out what an RAS could be. So that'll be reflected in this episode, but a lot of great guys to talk about. This is done in some tiers. So we have our white tier, which are incomplete profiles. Our red tier, which has too many red flags. We don't think the Green Bay Packers will draft the guys in our red tier. Orange tier will be players with multiple concerns or deficiencies. People we probably don't think the Green Bay Packers will draft, but wouldn't be totally surprised if they love their tape. Gold tier is, these are draftable players with only like one major concern and definitely in play for the Packers to draft. And then we have our green tier, where nearly everything, or very like one small outlier, or the outlier is totally overshadowed by everything else that's great. Those are the players in our green tier. So, and before we get in and share our prospects, just want to share the thresholds with you quick. For the defensive tackles that we know about, one thing we do know is that the defensive tackle thresholds are a little bit more all over the place than some of the other thresholds for some of these position groups. And the ones that we do know is they typically like to select defensive tackles that are over 300 pounds. There have been a few exceptions to that, especially if they're somebody who's going to play nose for the Green Bay Packers. They like players that run a 10-yard split of less than 1.73 and typically a 40 time of less than 5.0 seconds. There's been rumors about jump testing and things like that, but what I will say in some research, I don't know how much they actually care about their testing for defensive tackles. It seems very different than how they view their edge rushers at this point in time. And then from a leverage standpoint, they typically like players that are less than 6'6" tall because their pad level is typically naturally high, and you're pretty much cooked once you're, a blocker or offensive lineman can get underneath your pad level there. So just real quick, as we this is an interesting conversation, but typically we also say that the Packers will select players that have a higher RAS than 8 in the first round. We have 2 examples of players that are first round picks that are either Ted Thompson selections. Well, they're both Ted Thompson selections, but Goody, he said that he sticks with the Ron Wolf, Ted Thompson Packers model from the last 30 years. But Kenny Clark, when he was drafted in the first round, only had a 7.55 RAS. And BJ Raji only had a 4.33 RAS. Clearly, BJ Raji, you know all about him, and a big part of that Super Bowl run we made. Great Green Bay Packer. Other outliers, Kingsley Keke, even though they say we want 300 pounds plus, he was only 288 pounds when he was drafted in the 5th round by the Packers. Colby Wooden also, although I don't really know how to feel about Colby Wooden. I thought they maybe think he's some kind of hybrid player, but
Tweener.
He's extremely light as a tweener edge DT guy. Obviously he's playing a little bit more on the interior now, but he was only 273 pounds. His body type is more edge, skill set, more defensive tackle. So, I don't know, Rob, you have anything to add to that before we jump into our tiers?
Well, yeah, I guess there's it seems like this is kind of more of it's a deeper class. It's a little bit harder to evaluate, at least from our end, right? As we're trying to give you guys the best information that we can, and we certainly try. So, and do the best research we can. But yeah, I mean, just looking historically here on some of the lists that we have, Carl Brooks, granted he was round 6, so I mean they'll go obviously way out of the thresholds to be able to try and hit on somebody like that. But Devontae Wyatt, 9.6, 304 pounds in a round 1, so he completely hit it. But would you have said that Devontae Wyatt has lived up to the round 1 hype so far?
No, I would not. And,
Right.
I think that's obviously in the Packers circle. If anybody wants to be extremely critical of Brian Gutekunst in a completely fair way, he's not hit on his first round picks outside of Jair Alexander. And obviously, I'm not going to, judge him on injury and character. We got a lot of great years out of Jair Alexander, but, Goody hasn't hit on his first round picks often. Not yet. So hopefully that changes.
Yep, it's going to change this year.
So, Rob, why don't you have all the information, then we're going to start talking players now. So, Rob, why don't you share the players that are on our, incomplete profile list and our red list players that we probably don't think the Packers will take?
Yeah, so white list, Riley Mills, Notre Dame, light, 291 pounds. Next on the white list, Samoan Barrow Jr. Hopefully I got that right. 290 pounds, so less, or his weight is less. Tim Smith out of Alabama, don't have much on him. Next on our white list, Cam Hormsley out of BC. There is a connection to Jeff Hafley, but not much for him there. And then moving on over to our Reds, starting from the top on down, and actually somebody that I did like, but Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee, a little bit older at 23, but only he's light too, 291 pounds, has a 5.72 RAS. Deion Walker next for our red list out of Kentucky, and he's projected around the 3rd round. 6'7", and actually someone who I took recently, but in one of my mock drafts, but I don't think he'll be drafted by the Packers. He was the best person available, I think was in the 5th round, and he has a 3.65 RAS score, so probably not going to take him. Jamar Caldwell out of Oregon, he's next in our red list. He's projected around the 4th round. He has a 3.44 RAS, so pretty bad. Next, after that, JJ Peegs out of Old Miss. He has a very bad RAS score, 1.81. My goodness. But I know that JJ Peegs has obviously been in some talks around Packers fandom because he can be used in multiple different ways. At least that's what Old Miss did for him. Moving on down next into our red list and projected around the 6th round, but Cam Jackson out of Florida. He's very tall at 6'6", but also a 4.58 RAS. And then last on our red list and projected around the 7th round, or maybe even a UDFA, Elijah Simmons out of Tennessee, 3.41 RAS. So that is what our white and incompletes and our red list are that me and Jordan came up with. And I'll turn over to Jordan to start our next tier.
Yeah, and as I hope when we get closer to the draft, if we can come back and we can revisit on any of these prospects that we have incomplete profiles on. Maybe we can do like an update episode of like, yep, we got the information, and this guy tested like he's going to be a Green Bay Packer. We'll try to update you then at that point in time. In our orange tier, so remember our orange tier has multiple kind of deficiencies, red flags, out of threshold characteristics. So we don't think the Packers will take them for that reason, but wouldn't be totally surprised because they have some good tape. I think that a guy like Carl Brooks would have fell in this orange tier based on the fact that he had a weird body type for a defensive tackle, played for a small school, had a lower RAS. If we were doing this exercise 3 years ago, he would have been an orange tier player on this list. Obviously, they felt good about taking him in the 6th round. So, Aeneas Pebbles from Virginia Tech. Why is he on this list? Well, he's 23 years old already. He'll probably be, I think he'll be 24 at some point in time during the season. So he is an older prospect. He's 6 foot, so he's really short. He would be more in this BJ Raji mold. So we do have an example that they were willing to take a shorter player at this position in the past. Extremely light at 282 pounds. And his RAS doesn't kill him. He's got a 7.02 RAS, but he was close. He was under the 40 threshold at 4.94 seconds on the 40 time and very close at the 3 cone. So what I can say about him, he's an excellent pass rusher. He's got a 17.8% pass rush win rate. We talked about him in our episode with Eli Berkovitz as well, and he loved him from his interactions at the Senior Bowl. So a player I wouldn't mind the Packers taking it all in the 4th or 5th round. Just got some things working against him. 2 lesser known players on our orange tier list. Tonka Hemingway, which what a name for a defensive tackle. I would love to be called Tonka if I was going to be a defensive tackle in the NFL. But he's from South Carolina. He's on the older side and he's too light. He's 23 years old. He's only 284 pounds. So I think they'll maybe stay away. And Elijah Williams, a small school guy from Morgan State. He's sub 300. He's a small school guy. He's got a 7.16 RAS, so maybe a guy that would be a great UDFA. He's projected 7th round UDFA, but not going to be banging the drum for the Packers to select him. This is where it gets fun. Let's get into our gold tier and guys that we think will totally be on the board or have interest from the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, so in our gold tier, first one, and projected round 1, maybe end of round 1, but somebody actually too who just had their pro day, but Walter Nolen out of Ole Miss, 21 years old, 6'3". I think a big thing for him here too, 296 pounds. So he's arguably a few cheeseburgers less than the than the 300-pound threshold. I will say that he was at the Senior Bowl. He did dominate at the Senior Bowl. He's very, very good. Strong run defender, 13 sacks in the last 2 seasons. And I think that, there is a possibility for the Packers to be able to take him. I do like what he'd be able to bring, but a little light, needs to improve some of his hand placement, just needs a little bit more polish, not as consistent from what I was seeing on the tape for Walter Nolen, but still a decent possibility the Packers could end up taking him.
So, yeah, and we're still waiting on pro day testing from him as well. So we'll see what happens. Darius Alexander from Toledo.
This one hurts.
Yeah, I think the biggest one about Darius Alexander is he's 24 years old right now, and he'll be 25 years old in August, which to me, that totally takes him off of round one for being a Packers selection, and probably out of round two. You know, if he fell back to the third, I would say forget about it. Like, I don't care if he's going to be 25. If I can get like 4 to 6 years out of a guy who's this, big, who's this athletic, let's go for it. But you definitely want to try to get 2 contracts out of a first round selection, 2 full 4-year contracts. And his age is going to make it hard for him to be that player. But he's 6'4", 5, great athlete, 9.15 RAS, met the 40 and the 10-yard split times. Really great run defender. He can be a 3-tech, so you can move him around the defensive line. I think the biggest knocks on him is, he played at a small school, and how is that competition and production going to translate against much bigger, stronger, faster players now? I like him for the Packers in the 3rd round and no sooner, but we'll see how the draft board goes.
TJ Sanders out of South Carolina next in our gold tier, projected around round 2. 21 and a half years old, 6'4", a little taller on the taller side, but 297 pounds. So again, a couple cheeseburgers less than the 300 pounds. Really good RAS RAM, or really good, I guess, pretty good RAS, 8.55 RAS score. He did have a 9.4 broad jump though too, so he is a good interior pass rusher, wins with lateral quickness. 10 sacks in the last couple of years for him. Was a Senior Bowl invite too as well, but a couple of cons for him: hand placement and strength. Average against the run. If unable to win off initial move, can get locked up too as well. So again, pretty close to that, and he could be a Packers fit maybe round 2, round 3.
The next 3 guys we're going to talk about, all we're waiting on testing still from their pro days. But we think they're all going to be gold tier players based off of tape and how we think they're going to test. So that's the way we're going to talk about them right now. Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. Obviously, we're talking about somebody who's a national champion from a blue blood program. He's 21 years old, going to be 22, 6'2", 334. So from his age, his height, his weight, definitely a player who can be a 1-tech, but I think has, it might struggle a little bit to give you a pass rush. He's very powerful and strong player, thick lower half, but he has a pretty poor pass rush win rate. So I'm not sure if the Packers are really looking to win with 4, like we've said, that he's going to be that kind of guy who's going to give you that extra juice there. I think he's probably, in my opinion, probably a TJ Slaton upgrade, somebody who's got more upside than TJ Slaton, who's really strong against the run, probably can give you slightly more juice, but they're definitely going to have to work on his pass rush plan and his moves to be successful that way at the next level. So he's projected in the 2nd round.
Next up on this bracket of players, but Shamar Turner out of Texas A&M, only 22 years old, 6'4", and exactly 300 pounds. Again, too, just waiting on some more testing for him. Pro day was on the 27th. So, but a versatile 3-tech, can move him around, definitely gives a ton of effort as well. Did not have the best 2024, had some pretty bad games, and not strong. Not strong against the run or as a pass rusher too. So there's a lot more to be liked with him as far as a prospect for the Packers goes.
Alfred Collins, he's 23 years old. I think that's really the only ding that I see on him. I actually really like Alfred Collins as somebody who is especially a run stuffer. I think he's got some decent juice in the pass rush, but I would love Alfred Collins as a, 2nd or 3rd round selection. He's got long arms. He's versatile. He has pad level issues sometimes and probably needs to develop a second move or a better pass rush plan going into, those pass rush downs. But definitely interested in Alfred Collins and would not hate that selection on day 2.
Next in our gold tier, Joshua Farmer from Florida State, 6'3", 305 pounds. 7.85 RAS score. 40 time, 5'11", and then 1.77 in the 10-yard. 13 sacks in the last 2 seasons, so good pop and great pad level, and does have a really good explosive first step. Some cons: poor run defender, needs to develop a second move too as well. Gets blocked up on run plays too easily, so can get taken advantage of. But was also a Senior Bowl invite too as well. But projected round 2 or round 3.
Yeah, I mean, Joshua Farmer is somebody who, if you're just looking for more juice, pass rush wise, as like a 3rd or 4th round selection, is something. If you missed on some of our 1st or 2nd round selections, I mean, there's an option there to diversify the room for you, but probably a lot more like Devontae Wyatt in the fact that maybe average against the run maybe gives you a little bit more pass rush. Vernon Browerton, I think that's how you pronounce his name, but he's a riser right now. He's next on our gold tier. He's also a prospect from Texas at 6'4", 305. Appears to be very solid against the run and the pass rush. I'm still looking and kind of learning more about Vernon. Seems like he needs to improve more in his one-on-one matchups. He doesn't always win those, and obviously to be a lead at the next level, when you're one-on-one and not taking a double team, you need to find ways to win. Rob, I know you were looking at him a little bit more. Did you have anything else to add about Vernon?
Just watching the tape, I think he could be a good value, possible end of day 2, day 3 type of pick, depending on where he goes. I think he could be a possibility. I would be curious to see or get some more data points on him for some other stuff too as well, because that'll kind of obviously define him a little bit more as far as these data and analytics go. So far, what I've seen on tape, I like the value that you could get at somebody like him. Jordan Phillips out of Maryland, 6'3", 320 pounds, only a 6.68 RAS, so a little bit down there. Projected around end of day 2, day 3 pick. Carries his weight in his lower half, so he's got good leverage. 11% pass rush win rate, so pretty good for defensive tackle. Some cons: arm length, and then lack of hunters mentally.
Mentality, I think.
Lack of hunters mentality. So needs to get a little bit better as far as that goes, but possible end of day 2, day 3 pick for Jordan Phillips.
Yeah, last guy in our gold tier. So all those guys in our gold tier we just talked about were like arguably like top 100 selections. So again, despite like, hey, this guy's needs some improvement here, there, like those guys could all arguably go on day 2 of the NFL draft. So I mean, there goes to show you that maybe there's not so many like 5-star blue chip guys, but there's a lot of guys who probably are going to be NFL contributors in this class. And the last gold tier guy we got is more of a solid day 3 selection, maybe a 6th or 7th round selection, somebody we recently mocked, but junior Tafuna from Utah. Really like him a lot. 6'3", 308, ran about a 5.03 40 time. His RAS is 6.86, but as a 6th round selection, reminds me a lot of, what somebody like Carl Brooks could bring to us. He's got a, excellent run stop, and defensive run grades. So this is both a pro and a con, however you look at it. But his biggest NFL comp is Montravius Adams. Why is that a pro in this? Well, the Packers clearly like somebody that's built like that and can move like that. So wouldn't be surprised if they go back and try to draft that player again. Hope they get a little bit more upside. He also had an 8-year NFL career. He played with I think it's 8 years, but he definitely got a second contract with the Steelers and hung around there for a while. We want to be critical of his production or whatever he was. Like Montravius Adams was like a 5th round selection too. So let's be fair to Montravius Adams. All right, green tier guys. And right now we've only got about 5 guys on this list.
We
hope these guys are Packers.
Let's go. First one, and probably both in Jordan and I's draft. I'm just going to say it's our draft crush for sure. So, but Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, only 21 years old, 6'3", 331 pounds, 7.12 RAS score. But as we alluded to from before on some of where the other defensive tackles went, i.e. Kenny Clark, right? Kind of around there though for their RAS scores. 40 time, 5.13, 1.72 10-yard dash and an 8-1 broad jump. Some pros, good pass rush skill set, can hold up really good against double teams. And really, another pro for me too. He looks like the second coming of BJ Raji. Even when I was looking at our RAS scores, but obviously BJ Raji's was slightly lower as far as that goes, but he looks and would fit in just exactly like BJ Raji. But few cons: loses leverage on angle blocks, needs to get upfield and attack more often, and then sometimes lacks aggression too as well. So it needs to get a little bit of consistent there. But we both, Jordan and I, would be extremely ecstatic if we got Kenneth Grant, and he's projected to go around round 1. So
I would love him at pick 23. Another guy that I would love at pick 23 is Derek Harmon from Oregon, another player that we've talked about, extensively on the show, somebody that we love, and somebody who's maybe like this year's, I know Jaden Higgins in the second round, but like this year's first round, like consensus mock for the Packers seems to be a guy like Derek Harmon, 6'4", 330 from Oregon, built and moves like DeForest Buckner. We really like him. He's got high IQ on tape. He's got NFL quickness, definitely a 3-tech guy. 17.6% pass rush win rate in 24, so he can get after the quarterback. I think the only big knock on him, and this is at a very high level school, right, in Oregon, is that he only had one true year of great or notable production. I think the Packers still like, if you show you can do it at least once, especially at a big school, they're good with that. So Derek Harmon, somebody who should definitely be in play for the Packers at pick 23. And if he fell into the second round, I'd love to find a way to get him.
absolutely. Next in our green tier, and shout out to Big Mike, one of our big supporters and followers, but CJ West out of Indiana, 6'1", 316 pounds, a 9.17 RAS score, ran a 4.95 40, and then 10-yard was 1.73. So a lot of good things to like here about him, but high energy. He has a good first step, active hands, shoots gaps really well, built really well for a 4.3, outstanding run defender. Shout out Locked On Packers with Peter Bukowski, but a great interview there too as well. And then, produced at both Toledo and Indiana. Just real quick here, couple of cons, but short for defensive tackle on the shorter side, and also some short arms. But nonetheless, if you're getting him in round 3 or round 4, you're going to get an absolute steal. So I absolutely love CJ West for the Packers.
Yeah, sign me up in round 3 for CJ West. If we go like corner, wide receiver, CJ West, like, bam, that's a great way to attack the draft. Moving into day 4 now, maybe a little later on day 4, but a guy I really, really like for a lot of reasons is Zeke Biggers from Georgia Tech.
Also,
he's on the taller
a great name too. Let's be Zeke Biggers as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely 6'5", 321 at a 8.18 RAS score. Got a massive frame. He's mostly a 1-tech player, but like if you get, we talked about this on a previous episode, you're not going to be able to address all of our needs, in a dream scenario, like, oh, we're getting our corner, our defensive tackle, it's not going to happen like that. So some position of need is going to fall late. And if we just straight up need a TJ Slayton replacement late, this is our guy, Zeke Biggers. He's a 1-tech. He's got great effort for his size. He's never going to give up on a play. Couple knocks on him, though, why he's falling late. He lacks explosion with his first step. He has some missed tackle issues, and he's not very good as a pass rusher at all, but he can be an excellent run stuffer. So I like him immensely late on day 3 for the Packers.
And then our last one here for our green tier, project around round 6 or round 7, but Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, 6'5", but 288 pounds. So 12 pounds short than what we said the threshold would be for around 300 pounds, but a 9.87 RAS score, ran a 4.83 40. And his 10-yard was 1.71. Good against the run and the pass rush, but obviously a little bit on the lighter side, so could fit anywhere from a 3 to a 5-tech, but was also a Senior Bowl invitee too as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of one of those Colby Wooden tweeters with like more weight behind him, and I really like the way that he moves. I'd be very intrigued by what he could do in this defense with a late selection, but that's all we got for you, Packers fans. So thanks for being here and listening. Hope you've been enjoying this series and it's been as informative for you as it's been for Rob and I as we put these boards together. We've got more great Packers content every Wednesday and Saturday. So again, share with your friends, subscribe. If we get to that 500 subscribers, we're going to share this information with our followers, the visual of it, so you have that resource available, and you can connect with us, as we said earlier, on X. Rob's at Sounds Guta with 3 A's, and I'm at Olsen George. So until next time, Packers Nation, have a Guta morning, a Guta afternoon, and a Guta night. Go Pack.
Been wanted this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey.